episode number 284 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. My guest today is Alana McGlashan. Alana experienced miscarriage, Asherman syndrome, and fertility challenges on her journey to conceive. Navigating Asherman syndrome was one of the hardest times of her life, as she was told due to the severity, she may not be able to have children, sending her on a healing journey that, although may have taken 2 years, she now has 2 children. The medicine she found on her journey, she now shares with women in her one-to-one energetic womb explorations, helping women to rewrite the story they have been told on their own fertility journey and setting the foundations for profound healing. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast, a space where you can find empowerment on your fertility journey. I'm your host, Michelle Orovitz, and I wanted to pop in before we get started to mention that if you haven't already heard, I've released my new book, The Way of Fertility, that has been created for those who have tried everything to conceive and are simply unsure of what else they can do. This book shares tried and true wisdom from ancient teachings along with modern research that supports much of what has been taught for centuries. It has been made with love, and the stories shared will serve to awaken hope within you. If you'd like to give it a test drive, I offer the first chapter for free, and you can find a link with more information in the episode notes. I would also like to extend an invitation to you as part of our beautiful community to share your thoughts and experiences by leaving a review of the podcast. Your words have incredible power to inspire others who are also seeking comfort on their fertility journey. And for anyone who has already left a review, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Welcome to the podcast, Alana.
Hi, how are you going?
Good. So I'd love for you to share your story. I know that it's been a very personal fertility challenge story and definitely defied the odds from what you were told. And I love stories of hope. So I'm very excited to have you on and share your story and your experience with Asherman's syndrome, which I think a lot of people aren't really aware or may not even be aware that they actually have.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the time, I had no idea what it was. And it was something I was searching for in the hopes to hear hope, because I was just hearing a lot of stats and a lot of, let's say, stories that I didn't want to hear at the time. So I fell pregnant and lost that little baby at 10 weeks. And I was a scientist working in Sydney, which is from where I live 2 hours travel away. And I went to the early pregnancy room, and they gave me all these options of what you can do next. And at the time, everything, I would say I was heavily in my masculine energy, like all just do the things, list out the steps, and we will follow them to become parents. And because I traveled so far away, I took the option of a D&C, which is a dilation and curette. I'm not sure if that's called anything else anywhere else. And it's just basically the surgical removal.
No, that's what we call it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I woke up to complications after that. And, after being told, like, it's so routine. And I just thought, it would be simple. We do this and then I have a bleed and we can start trying again. And I woke up to, yes, as I said, complications and feeling really disorientated. And I just felt really in my gut like, wow, what just happened? And they kind of just brushed me off. And my doctor then later just was like, okay, well, it's been 6 weeks. You haven't got your bleed back. Sometimes women need a little bit longer. And I just knew in my gut things weren't right. And for me, I had no period. So 12 weeks post that surgery, I still had no period.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I think maybe around the 8 weeks, I was like, no, my gut's telling me something's not right. I'm going to book a specialist appointment. And because they take so long to get into, I thought, I'm just going to book it now. And if I don't need it, then I can cancel it.
Did you know anything at the time? Did they say something was off, or you just kind of felt it?
Yeah, there was nothing ever mentioned of Ashman syndrome. The only thing that they mentioned, I mean, they obviously mentioned some risks that can happen, and the risks are a perforated uterus. But it's so routine that if that was to happen, that was really negligence. And that was all that they had described as a potential risk. So I hadn't even heard of Ashman's by this point, and so I followed my gut, made this appointment, and it must have been around the 4-month mark after surgery. And I told him my story, thinking I was just going in there to get a tablet that would just help kickstart everything. Maybe I just needed some help to get things along. And again, I was very naive at that time of my cycle and understanding my body. And I walked in and told him my story, and basically he said, there is something called Ashman syndrome, and I feel that this is your situation, and we need to get in and have a look, because he could do it via scans and then go in and do surgery, but he's like, due to the nature of how long you've already waited and the scar tissue that would be there if it was confirmed, we need to get this cleaned up ASAP, basically.
Before we continue on the details, I want people to know, what is Asherman's syndrome?
Yeah, so Ashman syndrome is basically where scar tissue grows inside the uterus and reduces your fertility as a result from some form of surgery. So they might try and say just from D&C, but if you have a baby and maybe there's retained placenta and they clean it out that way, any sort of surgical intervention within your uterus could potentially scar. And I think what's important for women to know right now is that any change in your period, or if you're experiencing difficulties falling, could be a sign. I know women so the percentage is actually quite low. I forgot to look it up before we jumped on today, of Asherman's. But the other women that I had sort of searched for to bring awareness to our local hospital and their procedures, they had their period, but their periods just were different, a little bit lighter. Maybe they didn't go as long. There was just small signs, which they quite easily then got fobbed off as just being paranoid in a sense, and then all turned out to have different stages of Asherman's, whereas I had none and my stage was quite high, actually the highest he had seen in my local area. So that was not good news for me.
Yeah.
So long story short, he said we need to operate and confirm, and if so, it's a 20-minute procedure. I'll be in and I'll be out. And I thought my legs were pulled out from me at that moment. But from that surgery, I woke up and I felt really disorientated, as you do. And he's standing there waiting for me to wake up to tell me that, yes, I've confirmed it's Ashman syndrome. However, it is so severe. I've been in there for 4 hours and I can't see without risking damage to your uterus. And I need to do some further tests before we continue. And I remember the first thought I thought of was, am I going to be able to have children? And he had this solemn look on his face and he goes, I have no idea what's possible right now. And I was just gutted, absolutely gutted.
Wow, that is so real. I mean, to be in a situation like that and just thinking, okay, I'm going to go in and have the surgery and everything's going to be fine. It's going to be, what did he say, 20 minutes?
Yeah.
And to actually see that it's really severe. So what happened after that?
Yeah, so I then had to go. You have to allow a little bit of time for some healing, and they put in, I think it depends for the surgeon, but I got a gel put in that just kind of tried to help what he did pull away with the scar tissue not to reform, because there is a risk that as he opens it up, like the little spindles might touch and then start to pull together. So they put in this gel that lasts, I think, for 4 weeks. So I had to wait a month. And then he sent me for we call it here a sonohystogram. So it's just a ultrasound where they insert water into your uterus. And then they can see a good picture, the flow, if there's any blocks. And I think for women that might have blocked fallopian tubes, sometimes they use this and it can either unblock or at least identify that the fallopian tubes are blocked. And I'm just going to say that was the worst pain I had ever been in, getting that. And again, no one warned me that it could be uncomfortable. And I wouldn't say uncomfortable was the word. And I was just so lucky. I had a girlfriend who came with me and just said, look, I can sit here and hold your hand while they do this. And it probably turned out the reason why for me it was so painful, but I have now heard many other women describe it as quite excruciating, is that most of my uterus was scarred to the point that it was nearly completely shut.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so they were trying to obviously shove water in it and like open it up when it could not. And so that, again, was like a really hard thing to take. And the specialist had said that he will have to do this with multiple surgeries. The good news is there is a little part that is open. And he believed if he could get to there, then he could remove the rest. And it may take a few surgeries, but he just wanted to take his time. He didn't want to cause more damage. And so we had just resigned to the fact that this is a process that needs to be done and there's no rushing it. And the good news was the next surgery he was able to remove all the scar tissue. And again, he inserted the gel so that the hopes that nothing would close back up. And then I had another follow-up, just normal ultrasound, because I said I was too scarred to have that other ultrasound again. And yeah, and then from there he's like, okay, this is great. You know, we've got rid of it. The uterus has opened back up. It's gone to normal shape again. Let's work on your lining. So do I call it a symptom afterwards, is that your lining may not become thick again. And he is also an IVF specialist, so he was really wanting my lining to get to a certain thickness that he would want his IVF patients to be on, which just was not happening. And at first it was really disheartening. And so he had reached out to, there's a guru in Sydney, and then he went further. I think it was overseas. And he just said, you know, like some of them don't come back, you know, any thicker. And that is their lining. And so obviously being a scientist, I had read all the papers, read all the stats, and nothing was looking great to have a baby. Some women had, not many in the severity that I had. And if they did have one, they were high risks. The risk was the placenta could attach to your uterus muscle, and just a whole heap of other things that you really don't want to hear when all you want to do is be a mum. And yeah, so it was like I just kept going to this place, and this place just kept giving me the answers that did not agree with what was in my heart. And I just thought, this can't be my story. This can't be my only story. And I just had this feeling to expand where I was looking. And so I started to research other modalities. And I thought, you know what, if I can just help support my body, who knows what's possible. And I ended up finding a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner who specialized in fertility, and I went there weekly for 2 years. Yes, and I felt good. I felt like this was where I was meant to be, but it was really hard to hear the things that she was saying, like your body can be trusted, your body can self-heal, everything's possible. Because at the time I was so, as I said, in my masculine energy of stats and facts that I thought, how? And it wasn't until, obviously, with the acupuncture and the herbs, my mind started to heal, my heart started to heal, that then my womb had a chance to heal. And of course, it sent me on this huge journey, deep dive into energetics of the womb and its capacity, its ability. And I started to believe that, whoa, okay, she's a powerful organ, and not just organ, portal for creation. And
Oh,
right,
I'm getting the
tingles.
chills.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
when you said heart, that struck me because I know that the heart's connected to the uterus.
yeah. And it took me a long time to put two and two together, and your emotional state, and like the womb is the element of water, so your emotions, and it's the sister heart,
Mhm.
right? So of course our emotions are going to get stored in our uterus, and if she's too busy trying to hold our emotions that we're not processing, how was I giving her the space she needed to heal in the time frame I wanted, you know? And
Mhm.
it was just, my world had opened up. I still had at that time stayed close to the medical system. There was still fears, you know, that if I had fallen pregnant, what that then might look like, what that journey may look like. And we decided to focus not on a baby at the moment, just focus on healing, get married. And I fell pregnant on my honeymoon, or I found out on my honeymoon, and we were so excited. But again, I decided not to get a scan until a bit later, but that bubby had decided only 6 weeks was its time on this earth. And as
No.
sad as that was, it actually gave me the biggest sense of hope. And I realized the message was, just give me time. Just
Oh,
give me time.
wow.
And so I was like, okay, this is possible. That was without intervention. That was without any other, because I had a lot of fear around anyone going near my uterus again, because of course I trusted someone to go in there and do their job, and I came out damaged. And that like, not just you were hurt from that changed the projection of my life completely. And so I
Mhm.
had a lot of
Yeah.
mistrust. I didn't want anyone to go near it if I could help it. So I really wanted that natural approach. And as I said, as that strength between heart and womb grew, I knew that that was going to be possible. And I just had to trust that. You know, the divine timing of trusting and surrender is not the easiest thing to fall into or follow, but I just had to trust that my heart was guiding me on the path that then needed to be. Sorry, that brings up lots of emotions thinking about back then. And so, yeah, it was actually quite interesting that the divine timing of that baby that I then lost the second time, my family suffered a significant loss in like my immediate family not long after. And
Sorry. Yeah.
I believe that that baby also knew that it wasn't the time, because I needed to be there for my little brother.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I was just, you know, at the time you just think, wow, I'm copping blow after blow. But when you had the little bit of space, you just thought, well, how would I have been able to grow a baby right now? Like, I am in
Mhm.
so much
Right.
grief.
Right.
It it was
Wow.
insane. And then once he was better, I went on a Bali trip with a best friend, and she's like, you just need to, you know, live life a little bit. And we went on this retreat. And it was when we came back from that, we were like, okay, I feel like we're in a good place now. Like, I'm in a good place. Let's just see what happens without the pressure and the timing and the scheduling. I didn't want conceiving to be a job. I really wanted it to be from the
Mhm.
heart. And it was about,
Oh, I love that.
yeah, because I feel like when you're struggling, you really take the heart out of conceiving. And
Oof.
conception,
That is you are every single thing is a quote. I'm like, this is this is really I'm feeling this.
conception isn't just the creation between man and woman. It's the
Yes.
creation. It's a co-creation with the spirit of that baby. And
Oh,
what fuses that? Love, you know? And I wanted the
yes.
next baby to be strong enough to, like, whatever we needed to go through, we had each other. And
Like the stuff that you're telling, like it's making me emotional. Just so you know, like I'm really feeling every word that you're saying, not to interrupt, but continue.
I probably needed that pause for a second. Yeah, and so then we found out in February I was pregnant. And you know what? I knew instantly this was the baby, that this baby was going nowhere, that they were here, and my dreams had come true. There were still fears around the placenta attaching to my uterus and what that could mean. And at the end of the day, I had resided to the fact that if this was going to be my only baby, so be it, because I wanted this baby. And yeah, I had an OB because if things did start to go south, we wanted to be on that early. But anyways, I had a beautiful pregnancy, no complications. The placenta was in a great spot. And it even got to the point, because the stats had suggested that women with Ashman's have a cesarean. And again, that fear of do not go near that part of my body. I don't want you there. I really didn't want it if I didn't have to. And I said, can I try? Can I try and go natural? Like, everything is going well. There is no indication of anything wrong. And it was looking good, and she thought possibly, but then my son decided to stay in the breech position. And I was not in the place that I am in now, where I would continue with a vaginal birth. I mean, I was born a breech baby vaginally. And so I found it really hard that the quote I was told was that we have lost the art to birth a breech baby, or the skills, not the art.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay. And then today I think, I'm sorry, who's birthing the baby?
Mm-hmm.
The mum.
Right.
The mum is
Yeah.
birthing the baby, not you. Yes, you're
Right.
assisting. But yeah, so, my views today would have changed on that. But at the time, again, as I had mentioned, we just wanted the baby. And she did give me options to do that, like manipulation. My traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, she was doing all the things to create the space. Yeah, everything. I had everything going. I had it at home on my toes. I was doing the upside down poses, which, mind you, made me feel absolutely terrible. And so I just said to my husband, I can't do this. Like, this feels wrong. And I have to resign to the fact that he found his position and he was not moving. And that's where he wanted to be. And then it was my choice to decide how then that became our birth together. And so we had a cesarean. Beautiful little boy, everything great. It all went great. And so afterwards, because of the scarring and that fear that I had around my uterus, I didn't want to fall back in a place of like dissociation and detachment from it. Like, I had started to rebuild this relationship with my womb. And now they've just also added another scar. And I was like, well, I've had one baby. Who's to say I can't have another? And so I went on another deeper journey again, and with my practitioner, of healing this scar tissue and softening it before it has the chance to really harden in preparation for the next baby. And
this was acupuncture or another practitioner?
Acupuncture at the beginning. And then it was probably for the first 6 months I did acupuncture, and she showed me how to self-massage my scar tissue. And what else did we do? There was just a lot of hands-on touch, and I think her focus was to remind me that you can still have loving touch on your body after everything I had gone through. And after 6 months, it got a little bit hard with a little baby because she was in Sydney, where I had found her because it was close to work. It was really hard to get up to her. And now that he was starting to move and be mobile, it was a lot harder to have a session on my own. And so then I started looking at other modalities. I thought, well, okay, I've done all the acupuncture. Let's see what else there is. And I come across a lady who did yoni steaming, and she did energetic support, consultations beforehand. And it became just a really beautiful practice where I could turn within and I could nourish myself and just steam and just visualize the blood flow going back to my uterus and everything being soft and really in that feminine essence, that feminine energy, to allow that nurturing to happen to my. And I went weekly until my bleed came back, which was 14 months post, as I was a breastfeeding mum, postpartum. And, we were kind of on this urgency. Let's fall pregnant straight away because of everything we had. We didn't expect it to take 2 years to get our son. And I'm already in my 30s. So there was like that time pressure to, all right, if we want more children, because, you know, we had always talked about having 4 and we're like, oh gosh, I don't know if 4 is going to happen now. But if we can get, you know, on the roll, we'll see what happens. And so I had to reduce my breastfeeds to get my bleed back so that we could fall pregnant. And when we decided to start consciously conceiving, so I think it was just the month of that I ended up with my bleed, I started to feel this essence, this person, this spirit around me. And it was the first time I had really started to attune into these senses. And I just could feel this girl, this pink. I could see pink around me when she'd just show up. And it was really interesting because the month I fell pregnant, so obviously that 2-week wait, I couldn't feel her. I didn't know where she was. And I was like, oh, I feel like she's here. And I was pregnant. And I didn't tell anyone apart from the lady that I went to uni steaming, because we'd always talk about, you know, what do I feel like a baby might be? And I was like, to be honest, I can actually sense this female around me. And I just get these glimpses of pink, like a pink orb. And yeah, and then it turned out I had a daughter. And what was beautiful about that pregnancy, I mean, we didn't find out. I like to just wait till birth to find out what the gender of our babies are. And I did not want to go back to the hospital system. I didn't want to be put in a place where they would just see my history and then start to implement things that then, of course, would lead to other interventions that I didn't want. I didn't want to be supported in that way. I knew the capability of my body. My pregnancy was, again, a really gentle, easy pregnancy. I mean, I was very sick, but overall easy. And I decided to home birth. And again, that was like a huge thing. Like in my immediate community, you know, no one does that. And so I didn't want to tell anyone because I didn't need anyone's opinion to discourage me from this, because I think it was just before I tested on a stick, and I only tested on the stick to show my husband, like, I already knew I was pregnant. I had this vision that the birth would be at home. And so I really just wanted to trust that was, again, where I needed to go, and I needed to trust. And that took a lot of self-confidence to be able to say, no, this is what I want to do and why. And yeah, I had my daughter at home. And now I always knew that, like, my journey was a lesson to be learned. It was because if I continued on the path I had continued, I would not be the woman I am today. I wouldn't be the mother I am today. I wouldn't be making the choices I've been making for myself and my family today. And it was like a realignment, but also a gift for medicine, for me to be able to share with women. And, you know, I want my story to be heard, but I've also then set up my own business so that I can still be at home with my babes, because I want to raise my children. And I want to help women who feel like their story is just hurdle after hurdle. And what I've learned in this journey is, like, what we see in our physical body is only the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And like when we're looking and talking about our womb, the energetic womb, there is so much she holds, and there's so much healing that needs to start there. And the first thing I like to check with women is that connection between heart and womb. Is there coherence and resonance? Yes. How are they emotionally feeling?
You're speaking my language.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I love listening to your podcast, because I just was like, you get this.
I feel the same way about you, by the way.
And now I want women to, like, know how important it is to care for your womb and what we're seeing as manifestations on the physical side. The root cause,
yes,
the reason that you may not be seeing 100%. Change is not in the physical. It's in your energetics.
No.
Yeah.
100% Oh my God. I mean, I'm telling you, like, I'm so moved by your story, but also it just fascinates me, like, beyond fascinates me. When you were saying that you're a scientist, like, from somebody who came from a science perspective and background, and yet, even though you were still there, you still had your inner voice letting you know something was off. Like, the doctors didn't tell you anything was off. Nobody came to you after the surgery and said, something looks off. You figured it out. You knew it from the inside out. The wisdom within your body spoke to you and
Absolutely.
you heard it.
Yeah. And I think sometimes for women, if you allow that external noise to be too loud, you're going to feel it in your heart. You're going to feel it as grief, as sadness, as like, why is this happening? But that noise is too loud.
Hmm.
And, if all you take away from my story is that deep knowing, it's okay to know that your path could be different. And maybe that's your sign to go searching elsewhere.
I mean, yeah, it's incredible. First of all, it takes a lot of
Oh, doesn't
courage.
it?
Oh, I mean, it takes a lot of courage to hear something from an authority figure, especially if it's like people you're relying on and in the medical community. And I'm just FYI, I'm not saying not to listen to your doctors, but for your specific journey, your journey had twists and turns, and part of it did rely on you listening to your own gut and really getting to the bottom of it. And you remind me a lot of a patient who came on the podcast. Her name was Amy, and she was in her 40s. And she also was told she couldn't get pregnant with her own eggs and that she was approaching menopause. And she ended up having two babies afterwards, healthy babies. And she had this determination in her. Like, she was just, there was this kind of strength, and her voice was so loud, like her inner voice, and not her voice, her inner voice was so loud in telling her, no, 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 you gotta. And she had this determination within her that I see in you. And it's not something that is easy for everybody to answer that call. Like, it's not an easy call to answer to.
No. And it's a fire within, but it doesn't mean it's an easy path. And it's like you
Mhm.
have to have the courage to continue to choose what you know to be true. And I had many challenges. There was many times where I was like, well, I feel like the universe sometimes goes, are you sure? Because you can choose here if you want to, because we were given choice on this earth, right?
Right.
And you can choose to go this way because maybe you believe this is easier, or keep going. As a reminder, just to choose. And yeah, that fire and that courage, like there was a lot of times where I felt like I don't know, because you don't know. There's so much unknown, and the world really like thrives on structure because that brings safety and that brings knowing. And this path can be so unknown, and all you can do is put one foot in front of the other and trust yourself. Just trust in yourself, because then the pieces will start to fall and they will start to come. Yes, you may need to choose
Yes.
yourself, but keep choosing yourself and your baby. Because if you
Oh, I
desire a
love that.
baby, that desire is meant for you. Can you trust that?
You know what they say? There's that Rumi quote. It says, "What you seek is seeking
Mm,
you."
yeah, because otherwise why would we have that desire to do so?
I really believe that. Thank you for saying that, because I really, really believe that to be true. And I think a lot of people learn from so many different opinions and so much of that noise, outside noise. It dilutes their faith in that being true. Just because we don't have proof for something doesn't mean it's not true.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get to decide what's true for you. And I think that's when you come back to the medical system and your doctors, is just having a place of discernment. Is this really true for you? And if you can come from a place of self-trust, and that self-trust guided you to go there, absolutely listen to that. Like, my message is listen and guide from within.
And when you talk about that heart, well, there's this heart-brain coherence, but the heart has an energy field that's stronger than any other organ in our body. And people think it's all in the brain, but the heart actually has a way larger magnetic field.
Yep.
It has such an important role on our mind, and it has such an important role on our uterus, which is life-giving.
Yep.
And love gives life, breathes life. So talk about that resonance and that coherence and what you've learned about it
Yeah.
when it comes to the heart and the uterus.
Yeah. So I want to start with a quote from Joe Dispenza that I had just recently heard, and it kind of
I love
just
him.
put the words to place of what I was feeling. And he says, "We only accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts that are equal to our emotional state. We only accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts that are equal to our emotional state." And I was like, they're the words that I'm kind of searching for, right? Because a lot of my sensations that come through me are feelings. So I knew the heart needed to heal, and healing the heart allows for the womb to heal. And this relationship, this agreement between the two, like the womb holding on temporarily to emotions, to then return to the heart so the heart can process and it leave our body. And so there was a lot of practices that I have incorporated, and I still do them daily, where I will do a little visualization, and my intention is always love. And you can still have love and gratitude even if you're feeling deep sadness. And it's not about, I don't want to be sad anymore. Let's reject that. Grief is one of the deepest emotions you can have that has profound healing when you allow it to run its course.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think for women who are trying to conceive, when you're struggling, the thoughts that start to come up, why me? Why is my womb not working? I can't fall pregnant. I can't do this. There is anger. There's disconnection and disassociation from your womb. And really, in this society, we are already starting from a place of disconnection from our first bleed. And reconnecting, honing in, and sometimes it's as simple as 30 seconds. Close down your eyes, put your hand on your womb, you take a deep belly breath, visualizing your hands that are warm and loving, that mama hug that you just love to feel, wrapping around your womb. And then telling it, I love you. Thank you for everything you are doing. I know you want this too. And then bringing your hand back to your heart space. Feel that heart beat, your own rhythm, beating in your womb. And feel the love between the two. Maybe you like to envision a rope, a golden cord, connecting, vibrating, sending out this beautiful white light that's so strong and so pure. Feel it wrap around your body. Feel it encapsulate you. And then on your next inhale, breathe it all back in. Breathe it into your cells, every inch of your being, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And opening your eyes. And practicing a simple visualization I found daily was strengthening this reconnection. It allowed my inner voice to be heard. It built trust and surrender to the process, because pregnancy, birth, motherhood, it is all setting you up. It is not something that you can plan out. The key is surrender.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I get reminded that every day.
Yeah, I think we all do. Even though we've been on the path for a long time, the spiritual path really that is in the path of truth and alignment, it doesn't matter. We get reminded every single day. And I could literally talk to you for hours. I mean, there's just so much information, so many things, so many ahas that I felt talking to you. And I really, truly think that you are so aligned I literally think that you're channeling wisdom. You're very much connected to that. I can feel it. I could feel the truth in your words. I can feel the alignment. I feel the awareness and the knowing and the true knowing of thyself. I think know thyself. That's like the key. And the only way to do that is to get quiet and to connect with your inner wisdom and to hear what your body is telling you. Because the more you hear it, the more your connection with it gets stronger. And of course, I can talk to you for hours, but we don't have
Hours.
as much as I wish. But I would love for you to share how people can find you and how people can work with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they are inspired, which I know they are from your story.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at The Nurtured Woman. Womb, WOMBAN. And currently the way to work with me is through my one-on-one sessions, and they're energetic womb explorations for 1 hour where we can just dive into your current state, your desire, and really start honing into this connection between heart and with then obviously the opportunity to extend, but that is the point of contact.
Awesome. Well, I definitely feel you are connected to that womb wisdom. And I know that womb wisdom does actually speak to us. So, Alana, thank you so much for coming on here today, sharing your incredible story, like really incredible. Like I felt it on every level of my being. It got me emotional listening to your story. And I thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.
So that concludes today's episode. You can find all of the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share and leave a review. Reviews mean everything to podcasters, and I really enjoy hearing from my listeners. You can also find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com or email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I love hearing from my listeners. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com. I thank you so much for listening in and hope that you have a beautiful day.